Maya Chen had always been invisible at Westfield University. While her classmates dominated lecture halls with loud opinions and confident gestures, she sat in the back corner, taking notes in her worn composition book, speaking only when directly called upon. Her faded jeans and oversized sweaters made her blend into the background like wallpaper, and that's exactly how she preferred it. To her dormmates, she was just another quiet international student who spent too much time in the library and not enough time at parties. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The mockery started small, as it always does. Her roommate Jessica would roll her eyes whenever Maya declined invitations to social events, muttering about how some people needed to learn how to live a little. The girls down the hall had nicknamed her Ghost, claiming she moved so quietly they never heard her coming or going. During group projects, teammates would assign her the research portions, assuming she wasn't creative or confident enough to present. When she submitted her work, always meticulously detailed and perfectly formatted, they'd barely glance at it before one of the more outgoing members took credit during presentations. Professor Williams in her advanced computer systems class had grown frustrated with Maya's reluctance to participate in discussions, despite her consistently perfect test scores. During one particularly heated debate about cybersecurity vulnerabilities, he'd called her out directly. "Miss Chen, you've been awfully quiet back there. Perhaps you'd like to share your thoughts, assuming you have any." The class had snickered, and Maya had simply nodded, offering a brief technical response that went over most of their heads. Williams had dismissed her input with a wave of his hand, turning back to the more vocal students who preferred theoretical discussions over practical applications. In the dining hall, Maya ate alone, usually with a textbook propped open beside her tray. Groups of students would glance her way and whisper among themselves, creating elaborate stories about her background. Some claimed she was incredibly wealthy but trying to hide it. Others insisted she was on a full scholarship and working multiple jobs to stay afloat. A few suggested she was socially anxious to the point of needing therapy. None bothered to simply ask her directly, and Maya never offered corrections to their assumptions. She found their gossip amusing, considering how far from reality their guesses usually landed. The computer science building became her sanctuary. While other students rushed through their programming assignments, Maya would spend hours in the lab, working on projects that went far beyond the curriculum requirements. Her code was elegant, efficient, and often solved problems in ways that surprised even the teaching assistants. But when she'd try to explain her methods to struggling classmates, they'd quickly lose interest, assuming her approaches were too complicated or unnecessary. They preferred copying solutions from online forums rather than understanding the underlying principles Maya tried to share. Her dormitory floor treated her like a fixture they'd grown accustomed to ignoring. During late-night conversations in the common room, she'd sometimes emerge from her room to grab water from the kitchen, and the chatter would briefly pause before continuing as if she hadn't appeared at all. When floor meetings were called to address noise complaints or cleanliness issues, Maya would sit quietly in the corner, while others debated and argued, her presence so unremarkable that the resident advisor sometimes forgot to count her when taking attendance. The isolation wasn't entirely unwelcome. Maya had grown up in a military family, moving frequently between bases, learning early that forming deep connections often led to painful goodbyes. Her father, a career soldier, had taught her that observation and preparation were more valuable than popularity and noise. Her mother, an intelligence analyst, had shown her that the most important work often happened in silence, away from public recognition. They'd both emphasized that true strength didn't need an audience, and that the most dangerous opponents were often the ones no one saw coming. During her sophomore year, the mockery intensified when Maya was assigned to a group project in her network security course. Her teammates, all male and considerably more vocal about their abilities, had immediately assumed leadership roles, relegating her to documentation and research tasks. When she'd suggested implementing additional encryption layers in their mock security system, they'd laughed, with one dismissively explaining that they needed to focus on practical solutions, not over-engineering problems that didn't exist. They'd patted her shoulder condescendingly, suggesting she stick to what she knew best, organizing their findings into PowerPoint slides. The night before their presentation, Maya had stayed up late reviewing their proposed solution. She'd identified 17 critical vulnerabilities in their system, flaws that could be exploited by even moderately skilled hackers. When she'd tried to discuss these concerns with her team the next morning, they'd brushed off her warnings, insisting they'd already finalized everything and didn't have time for her perfectionist tendencies. During their presentation, Professor Martinez had asked pointed questions about security measures, questions that Maya could have answered easily but her teammates fumbled through awkwardly. After receiving a mediocre grade on the project, her teammates had blamed Maya's contributions, claiming her research had been too theoretical and not practical enough for real-world applications. They'd suggested that maybe computer science wasn't the right field for someone who couldn't think outside textbook examples. Maya had accepted their criticism silently, as she always did, but privately she'd began working on her own version of the security system, one that addressed every vulnerability she'd identified, and several others her teammates hadn't even considered. The whispers followed her everywhere on campus. In the library, students would glance at her corner table and murmur about the girl who never seemed to have friends or join study groups. In lecture halls, professors would scan the room for participation, and their eyes would skip right over her, as if they'd mentally categorized her as a non-contributor. During campus events, she'd walk past groups of laughing students and catch fragments of conversations speculating about her background, her interests, her apparent inability to connect with her peers. What none of them realized was that Maya's quiet nature wasn't born from shyness or lack of confidence. She'd been trained from childhood to observe, analyze, and respond only when necessary. Her father's military discipline had taught her that unnecessary chatter often revealed more than intended, and that the most effective operators were those who moved unseen and unheard until the moment action was required. Her mother's intelligence background had shown her that information gathering was more valuable than information sharing, and that understanding others while remaining mysterious yourself provided significant strategic advantages. In her dorm room, Maya maintained equipment that would have surprised anyone who managed to glimpse it. Hidden beneath textbooks and inside seemingly ordinary storage containers was technology far more advanced than anything used in her computer science classes. Custom-built processors, encrypted communication devices, and monitoring equipment that could tap into networks with military-grade precision. She'd assembled most of it herself, using knowledge gained not just from textbooks but from summers spent shadowing her parents at various military installations around the world. Her computer setup went far beyond what any college student would typically need. Multiple monitors displayed code that would have been indecipherable to her classmates, algorithms that could crack encryption systems most people had never heard of. She ran penetration tests on corporate networks, not to cause damage but to identify vulnerabilities that she'd then report anonymously to the appropriate security teams. Her activities were perfectly legal, falling under the category of ethical hacking, but she kept them private to avoid drawing attention to capabilities that might raise uncomfortable questions. The university's IT department had noticed unusual network activity originating from the dormitories, but had been unable to trace it to any specific source. Maya's digital footprints were carefully obscured, her activities masked behind layers of proxy servers and encrypted tunnels that made tracking impossible. She'd occasionally catch glimpses of campus security guards checking Ethernet ports in her building, clearly searching for signs of unauthorized access, completely unaware that the person they sought walked past them daily without earning a second glance. Her academic performance remained flawless, but her professors attributed this to memorization rather than genuine understanding. When she'd solve complex problems in ways that differed from textbook examples, they'd mark her work as correct but suggest she follow more conventional approaches in the future. When she'd identify errors in course materials or outdated information in assigned readings, her corrections were often dismissed as overthinking or nitpicking. She learned to keep her insights to herself, completing assignments exactly as expected while pursuing her real education through channels her instructors never suspected. The social isolation deepened as her reputation for being different spread throughout her dormitory. Roommates requested transfers, claiming she made them uncomfortable with her odd hours and quiet habits. Floor activities were planned without consulting her, under the assumption that she wouldn't participate anyway. When campus security implemented new access card systems, she was among the first to have her credentials questioned, as if her low profile automatically made her suspicious. The irony wasn't lost on her that being unremarkable had somehow made her remarkable in all the wrong ways. Late at night, when her dormmates were either studying or socializing, Maya would often sit by her window, watching the campus security patrols make their rounds. She'd identified patterns in their movements, gaps in their coverage, weaknesses in their communication systems. This wasn't malicious surveillance but professional curiosity, the same way a chef might mentally critique a restaurant's kitchen efficiency, or a musician might analyze the acoustics of a concert hall. She saw systems everywhere, and systems could always be understood, improved, or when necessary, circumvented. Her relationship with technology went beyond academic interest. While her classmates used computers for social media, entertainment, and basic productivity, Maya treated them as extensions of her consciousness. She could navigate complex networks intuitively, write code that seemed to predict user needs before they articulated them, and identify system vulnerabilities through patterns that weren't visible to conventional analysis. Her professors had no idea that their star student was already operating at levels they wouldn't achieve after decades in their fields. The mockery reached its peak during her junior year when she was selected for an advanced cybersecurity seminar, despite having never spoken up in previous courses.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Her classmates openly questioned whether there had been some sort of administrative error, suggesting that perhaps her name had been confused with someone else's. The professor leading the seminar, Dr. Harrison, seemed equally puzzled by her inclusion, especially after she failed to contribute to opening discussions about current threat assessments and defensive strategies. During the seminar's first practical exercise, students were asked to identify vulnerabilities in a mock corporate network. While her classmates worked in teams, debating approaches and sharing resources, Maya worked alone, as had become her custom. Within 30 minutes, she'd not only identified the obvious vulnerabilities the exercise was designed to reveal, but had also discovered 3 additional backdoors that Dr. Harrison hadn't realized existed in the simulation. When she quietly submitted her findings, he'd glanced at them briefly before setting them aside, assuming she'd simply copied from more advanced students. The breakthrough moment came during the seminar's final project, when students were challenged to design security protocols for a hypothetical government contractor. Most teams focused on standard approaches, implementing commercially available solutions with minor modifications. Maya's submission was radically different, proposing adaptive encryption systems that could evolve in real time to counter emerging threats. Her documentation included mathematical proofs that went far beyond graduate-level coursework, practical implementations that demonstrated deep understanding of military-grade security requirements, and strategic analysis that revealed insights typically reserved for classified briefings. Dr. Harrison had stared at her submission for nearly an hour, cross-referencing her algorithms against current military standards, searching for signs that she'd simply copied advanced systems from classified sources. Everything checked out, but the sophistication of her work seemed impossible for a quiet undergraduate who'd never demonstrated such capabilities in classroom settings. When he'd called her to his office for discussion, Maya had answered his technical questions with casual precision, as if describing elementary concepts rather than cutting-edge security innovations. Word of Maya's unexpected expertise began circulating among faculty members, though most students remained unaware of the shift in perception. Professor Williams, who'd once dismissed her contributions, began paying closer attention to her test responses, noting that her answers often included insights that went far beyond course materials. Dr. Martinez started asking follow-up questions after her presentations, not to challenge her knowledge but to understand the depth of her understanding. The computer science department head began, including her name in discussions about students who might be suitable for advanced research opportunities. But Maya's classmates continued treating her as they always had, the quiet girl who sat in back corners and rarely spoke during group discussions, the mysterious roommate who kept odd hours and seemed to have no social life, the strange international student who probably got her grades through memorization rather than genuine understanding. They had no idea that their assumptions were about to be shattered in ways they couldn't possibly anticipate. The signs started subtly. Campus security patrols began following different routes, with guards paying particular attention to her dormitory building. Black sedans with tinted windows occasionally appeared in the visitor parking lot, their occupants remaining inside for hours at a time. The university's IT department implemented new monitoring systems, ostensibly for routine maintenance but clearly designed to track specific types of network activity. Maya noticed all of these changes, understanding their significance while her dormmates remained oblivious to the shifting atmosphere around them. Her parents' phone calls became more frequent, with conversations that sounded casual to anyone listening but contained coded language that conveyed urgent information. Her father's questions about her studies included references that only someone with military intelligence background would recognize. Her mother's concerns about her health and well-being included subtle warnings about maintaining operational security and avoiding activities that might draw unwanted attention. Maya understood that something significant was developing, though she couldn't yet determine the exact nature of the situation. The final weeks of the semester brought an unusual tension to campus. Professors seemed distracted during lectures, occasionally glancing toward doors as if expecting interruptions. Administrative staff asked more questions about student activities and whereabouts, claiming routine updates to emergency contact information. Campus security guards were joined by additional personnel who didn't wear uniforms but carried themselves with military bearing that Maya recognized immediately. The university was preparing for something, though official channels provided no information about what that might be. Through it all, Maya maintained her routine of attending classes, completing assignments, and spending quiet evenings in her dormitory room. Her dormmates continued ignoring her presence, her classmates still dismissed her contributions, and her professors remained puzzled by her unexpectedly sophisticated work. None of them realized that the quiet student they'd overlooked and underestimated had been operating at levels that would soon bring consequences none of them were prepared to face. The morning everything changed started like any other. Maya woke before dawn, as was her habit, and spent an hour reviewing encrypted communications that had arrived overnight through channels her dormmates would never discover. The messages were brief but urgent, confirming that months of careful observation and analysis had finally reached their culmination. Today would be the day when her true identity could no longer remain hidden, when the assumptions and dismissals of the past 3 years would be exposed as the fundamental misunderstandings they'd always been. As she prepared for what she knew would be her last normal day at Westfield University, Maya reflected on the irony of her situation. The students who'd mocked her quietness had no idea she'd been listening to conversations they'd assumed were private. The professors who'd dismissed her insights hadn't realized they were rejecting analysis that exceeded their own expertise. The administrators who treated her as just another unremarkable student were about to discover that some people's remarkableness was simply hidden beneath layers of careful preparation and strategic patience. The pieces were all in place. The quiet student who'd been invisible for 3 years was about to become the center of attention in ways that would challenge everything. Her university community thought they understood about judgment, assumption, and the dangerous consequences of underestimating those who choose to remain silent until action becomes necessary. The transformation began at precisely 0630 hours on a Tuesday morning in early May. Maya had completed her usual pre-dawn routine, monitoring global intelligence feeds through encrypted channels while her dormmates slept peacefully in their beds. The overnight communications had carried an unusual urgency, with coded references to timeline acceleration and operational readiness protocols. Something significant was approaching, and Maya understood that her careful balance between academic camouflage and covert preparation was about to collapse entirely. Her first class of the day was Advanced Network Architecture with Professor Chen, no relation despite the shared surname. As Maya entered the lecture hall, she noticed subtle changes that would have been invisible to casual observers, but stood out clearly to someone trained in operational awareness. 2 students she'd never seen before sat in strategic positions near exits, their posture and scanning patterns suggesting security rather than academic backgrounds. The professor's usual teaching assistant had been replaced by someone whose credentials looked impressive on paper, but whose technical questions revealed gaps that didn't match his supposed expertise. During the lecture, Professor Chen discussed theoretical approaches to network penetration testing, covering concepts that Maya had been implementing practically for years. When he asked for volunteer demonstrations of basic intrusion detection protocols, the usual eager students raised their hands, but Maya noticed his gaze lingering on her with unexpected intensity. She kept her expression neutral, taking notes on material she could have taught more effectively than the professor himself, while monitoring the room's occupants through peripheral vision. The morning's second class brought more anomalies. Harrison's cybersecurity seminar had been moved to a different classroom without prior notice, forcing students to scramble across campus to find the new location. When they finally assembled, Maya observed that the room's layout provided better sightlines for observation and more controlled access points than their usual meeting space. Two maintenance workers spent the entire class period adjusting ventilation systems, their movements too deliberate, and their equipment too sophisticated for routine repairs. During the seminar's practical exercise, Dr. Harrison presented a network defense scenario that seemed familiar to Maya, though she couldn't immediately identify why. As her classmates worked through standard penetration testing procedures, she realized the simulation replicated specific vulnerabilities she'd discovered and reported anonymously to federal agencies 6 months earlier. The exercise wasn't designed to test student knowledge but to evaluate how she'd respond to encountering her own previous work in an academic context. Maya completed the exercise using conventional approaches rather than the innovative methods she'd originally employed, but she could feel Dr. Harrison's attention focusing on her responses. When he asked follow-up questions about alternative strategies, her answers revealed enough sophisticated understanding to confirm suspicions while avoiding explicit admission of prior experience. The delicate balance between demonstrating competence and maintaining operational security required constant recalibration as the morning progressed. Between classes, Maya noticed increased activity around her dormitory building. Utility vehicles occupied parking spaces typically reserved for student use, their occupants remaining inside while equipment operated continuously. Campus security guards walked different patrol routes, with particular attention to entrances and exits near her residence hall. The changes were subtle enough that most students remained oblivious, but Maya recognized the signs of surveillance infrastructure being systematically deployed around her living space. Her roommate Jessica had left early that morning for a spontaneous weekend trip, claiming a last-minute invitation to visit friends at another university. The sudden departure struck Maya as convenient timing, especially since Jessica had previously shown no interest in maintaining friendships beyond Westfield's campus. When Maya discreetly examined Jessica's belongings, she found gaps suggesting hasty packing and items left behind that Jessica would normally consider essential. Someone had encouraged or arranged her roommate's absence, clearing the dormitory room for whatever was approaching. The afternoon brought Maya's most challenging class, a graduate-level seminar in cryptographic systems that she'd been permitted to audit despite her undergraduate status. The professor, Dr. Reeves, was a former NSA analyst, whose lectures often included references to classified projects he couldn't discuss in detail. Today's session focused on quantum-resistant encryption algorithms, a topic Maya had been researching independently for over a year using resources unavailable to most academic institutions. As Dr. Reeves outlined theoretical approaches to post-quantum cryptography, Maya recognized methodologies she'd helped develop during summer internships that weren't supposed to exist according to her official academic records. The professor's presentation included mathematical proofs that appeared in papers she'd co-authored under pseudonyms, work that was classified at levels requiring security clearances her student identity wasn't supposed to possess. The lecture felt like an elaborate test designed to measure her reaction to encountering her own classified research in an unclassified academic setting. When Dr. Reeves asked for student input on practical implementation challenges, Maya found herself in an impossible position. Her genuine expertise could provide insights that would advance the class's understanding significantly, but revealing such knowledge would expose capabilities inconsistent with her undergraduate cover identity. She offered measured responses that demonstrated competence without revealing the depth of her actual experience, walking a tightrope between helpful participation and operational security. After class, Dr. Reeves asked Maya to remain behind for what he described as a brief discussion about her academic interests. Once other students had departed, his demeanor shifted from professorial to something more direct and purposeful. He asked specific questions about her background, her career goals, and her familiarity with government research opportunities. His inquiries probed areas that seemed routine but carried implications Maya recognized as preliminary security interviews. The conversation revealed that Dr. Reeves knew more about her authentic background than her student records should have indicated. His questions referenced knowledge that could only have come from classified sources, suggesting that her carefully constructed academic identity was no longer providing the protection she'd relied upon for 3 years. When he concluded by mentioning that interesting opportunities sometimes arose for students with unique qualifications, Maya understood that her time at Westfield University was approaching its inevitable conclusion. Evening brought an acceleration of the morning's unusual activity. As Maya walked across campus after dinner, she counted no fewer than 8 individuals whose positioning and movement patterns indicated professional surveillance rather than casual presence. They maintained proper distances and avoided direct observation, but their coordination and communication habits revealed training that exceeded typical campus security protocols. Someone was monitoring her activities with military precision while attempting to maintain plausible civilian cover. Her dormitory floor felt different when she returned that night. Conversations in the common room stopped abruptly when she appeared, resuming only after she'd passed through to her room. The resident advisor, typically friendly and approachable, avoided eye contact and seemed unusually nervous during their brief interaction. Several doors that were normally open remained closed, creating an atmosphere of tension and anticipation that her dormmates couldn't explain but clearly felt. In her room, Maya conducted a thorough sweep for surveillance equipment, using detection methods that would have surprised anyone who discovered them. She found 3 new devices that hadn't been present that morning, sophisticated enough to capture both audio and visual information while remaining nearly invisible to casual inspection. Rather than removing them immediately, she noted their positions and capabilities, understanding that their presence indicated her situation had progressed beyond preliminary observation to active intelligence gathering. Her secure communication systems revealed messages confirming that multiple agencies had begun coordinating activities related to her presence at Westfield University. The communications were heavily encrypted and fragmented across different networks, but Maya's access to high-level intelligence channels provided enough information to understand that her academic cover identity was being systematically dismantled by forces beyond her direct control. The quiet student persona she'd maintained for 3 years was about to be exposed in ways that would shock everyone who thought they knew her. The messages also indicated that her extraction from the university environment had been moved to an accelerated timeline. What had originally been planned as a gradual transition over several months was now scheduled to occur within days, requiring careful management to avoid creating security risks or exposing classified programs to academic scrutiny. Maya understood that her time for maintaining the fiction of being an ordinary undergraduate was measured in hours rather than weeks. As midnight approached, Maya prepared for what she knew would be her final night as an anonymous student at Westfield University. She secured her most sensitive equipment and encrypted her research files using protocols that would render them inaccessible to anyone lacking specific authorization codes. Her personal belongings were organized with military precision, ready for rapid departure while maintaining the appearance of normal student life until the last possible moment. The campus fell quiet around 0200 hours, but Maya remained alert, monitoring communication channels that buzzed with activity despite the late hour. Coordination messages flowed between teams positioned around the university, with references to staging areas, transport schedules, and security protocols that indicated a major operation was entering its final preparation phases. The quiet student who'd been invisible for 3 years was about to become the center of the most significant security event in Westfield University's history. At 0347 hours, Maya detected the first signs of movement around her dormitory building. Vehicles approached using routes that avoided main campus thoroughfares, their occupants deploying with precision that indicated extensive advance planning. Communication intercepts revealed that perimeters were being established, exit routes secured, and coordination protocols activated for an operation that would require careful management to avoid civilian casualties or public panic. The sounds outside her window changed subtly as professional teams took positions around the building. Maya recognized the acoustic signatures of tactical equipment being deployed, communication systems being tested, and personnel moving into predetermined positions. Her dormmates slept undisturbed, unaware that their building had become the focal point of an operation involving agencies whose existence most civilians never considered. Maya changed from her sleeping clothes into practical gear suitable for the confrontation she knew was approaching. Her movements were deliberate and efficient, each action calculated to maximize readiness while avoiding any behavior that might trigger premature action from the teams surrounding her location. She understood that the next few hours would determine not only her immediate future but potentially the exposure of classified programs that had been years in development. Her communication equipment registered increasing signal traffic as coordination between teams intensified. Messages referenced specific protocols for managing high-value targets in civilian environments, procedures for minimizing collateral exposure, and contingency plans for various response scenarios. Maya realized that her situation had escalated beyond routine intelligence operations to something requiring the most sophisticated resources available to federal agencies. At 0421 hours, Maya heard the first sounds of her dormmates being awakened. Voices in the hallway carried confusion and concern as residents were quietly evacuated from rooms adjacent to hers, though the process was managed carefully to avoid creating panic. She could hear resident advisors providing reassurances about routine maintenance requiring temporary relocation, explanations that would seem plausible until the true nature of the situation became apparent. The evacuation proceeded systematically, with teams ensuring that civilian students were moved to safe distances while maintaining operational security around Maya's location. She monitored the process through various sensors, understanding that her room was being isolated as thoroughly as possible within the constraints of a university environment. The quiet student who'd been ignored by her dormmates for 3 years had become important enough to warrant evacuating an entire residence hall. By 0445 hours, Maya's floor had been cleared except for essential personnel. She could detect movement in adjacent rooms as teams positioned themselves for whatever confrontation was approaching. The silence felt different now, heavy with anticipation and professional tension rather than the casual quiet of sleeping students. Maya prepared herself mentally for the encounter that would end her time as an undergraduate and begin whatever chapter was approaching in her carefully planned but rapidly evolving life. Her secure communications registered a final series of coordination messages as teams reported readiness and awaited authorization to proceed. Maya understood that she had perhaps minutes before her dormitory room door would open to reveal individuals whose presence would forever change how everyone at Westfield University understood the quiet student who'd lived among them unnoticed for 3 years. The moment she'd been preparing for throughout her academic career was about to arrive with a precision and intensity that would leave no doubt about who she really was beneath the carefully constructed facade of academic anonymity. The morning light began filtering through her window as Maya took her position near the center of her room, hands visible and posture non-threatening but alert. She'd removed any equipment that might be misinterpreted as threatening while ensuring that her authentic identity would be immediately apparent to anyone with proper security clearances. The quiet student was ready to meet whatever force was approaching, prepared to transition from academic cover to operational reality in ways that would shock everyone who thought they knew her. At precisely 0500 hours, Maya heard the distinctive sound of tactical teams taking final positions outside her door. The operation that had been building momentum for days was about to reach its climax, transforming a quiet dormitory room into the epicenter of revelations that would challenge everything her university community believed about judgment, assumption, and the dangerous consequences of underestimating those who choose to remain silent until circumstances make concealment impossible. The door exploded inward at exactly 0500 hours, splinters of wood cascading across Maya's dormitory floor as 6 figures in full tactical gear flooded through the opening with practiced precision. Their movements were fluid, coordinated, deadly in their efficiency as they swept the small space with weapons raised and voices barking commands that echoed off the cinderblock walls. Maya stood motionless in the center of her room, hands raised but relaxed, her expression calm despite the overwhelming display of force surrounding her. Target acquired, room secure, the lead operator announced into his headset, his rifle trained on Maya's center mass while his team established a perimeter around her. The insignia on their gear identified them as Naval Special Warfare Command, though Maya had recognized their tactical signatures long before visual confirmation. These weren't campus security guards or federal agents conducting a routine investigation. These were Navy SEALs, America's most elite maritime special operations force deployed against a college student in her dormitory room. Through the shattered doorway, Maya could see additional personnel filling the hallway, their equipment and bearing indicating multiple agency involvement in whatever operation had just reached its climactic moment. The quiet corridor where she'd walked past dismissive dormmates for 3 years now resembled a military staging area, with tactical teams, technical specialists and individuals in suits whose presence suggested intelligence community oversight at the highest levels. Commander Jake Morrison stepped forward, his helmet removed to reveal weathered features that spoke of deployments in places most civilians would never hear about. His eyes met Maya's with an intensity that acknowledged what everyone else in the room was still struggling to comprehend. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity or academic curiosity gone wrong. This was a deliberate, precisely planned operation targeting someone whose true significance had been hidden beneath layers of carefully constructed normalcy. Maya Chen, Morrison said, his voice carrying authority that filled the small space completely. Though we both know that's not your complete designation, is it? His question hung in the air like a challenge, an invitation for Maya to drop the facade she'd maintained throughout her university career. The SEAL commander understood exactly who he was facing, and his recognition transformed the atmosphere from confrontation to something approaching professional acknowledgement. Maya lowered her hands slowly, her movements deliberate and non-threatening, but confident in ways that hadn't been visible during 3 years of academic anonymity. "Commander Morrison," she replied, her voice carrying subtle inflections that suggested familiarity with military protocols and chain-of-command structures. "I've been expecting this conversation, though perhaps not quite so dramatically." Her response confirmed what Morrison suspected while revealing capabilities that transcended anything suggested by her student records. The tactical team maintained their positions, but their postures shifted slightly as Maya's demeanor changed from compliant civilian to something approaching professional recognition. Morrison gestured for his operators to lower their weapons, understanding that whatever threat Maya represented wouldn't be neutralized through conventional force. The quiet student who'd been dismissed by her peers possessed capabilities that required different approaches than standard detention procedures. "Stand down, but maintain perimeter security," Morrison ordered his team, his attention never leaving Maya as she stood calmly in the center of her demolished dormitory room. The SEALs responded immediately, weapons lowered but ready, their training allowing them to transition from assault posture to containment protocols without compromising operational readiness. The room felt different now, tension shifting from immediate threat to complex negotiation. From the hallway, additional personnel began entering Maya's room, their credentials representing agencies that most university administrators had never interacted with directly. NSA technical specialists wheeled in equipment designed to analyze the sophisticated technology Maya had concealed within seemingly ordinary student furnishings. CIA intelligence officers reviewed files that documented activities spanning multiple years and crossing international boundaries. Defense Intelligence Agency analysts prepared to correlate Maya's academic performance with intelligence assessments that painted a dramatically different picture of her true capabilities. Dr. Harrison appeared in the doorway, his professorial demeanor replaced by something more official and purposeful. The cybersecurity instructor who'd puzzled over Maya's unexpected expertise now revealed his authentic role as Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency liaison, responsible for identifying and evaluating technological innovations with potential military applications. His presence confirmed that Maya's academic performance had been monitored at levels far exceeding routine educational oversight. The simulation exercises, the research projects, the anonymous vulnerability reports, Dr. Harrison said, as he approached Maya's position, his tone mixing professional respect with underlying concern. Everything was designed to evaluate capabilities we suspected but couldn't confirm through conventional assessment methods. His admission revealed the extent to which Maya's university experience had been managed and manipulated by agencies seeking to understand her true potential. Maya nodded acknowledgement, understanding that her careful balance between demonstrating competence and maintaining operational security had ultimately failed to prevent exposure. The quantum encryption algorithms, the network penetration methodologies, the strategic analysis frameworks, she responded, her voice carrying technical precision that exceeded anything her classmates had heard during group projects or classroom discussions. I assume you've identified the classified origins of work I submitted under academic cover. Dr. Reeves entered the room, his NSA background now officially acknowledged as he joined the growing collection of personnel whose presence transformed Maya's dormitory space into an impromptu intelligence briefing center. Your summer internships, your research publications under various pseudonyms, your contributions to programs that don't officially exist, he said, consulting files that documented activities spanning multiple security classifications. The academic facade was impressive, but ultimately insufficient to contain work at your operational level. The room buzzed with activity as technical teams began documenting and cataloging Maya's equipment, their expertise revealing the sophisticated nature of technology she'd assembled within the constraints of student housing. Quantum processors hidden inside gaming consoles, satellite communication arrays disguised as study lamps, and encryption devices masquerading as common electronics painted a picture of capabilities that exceeded most government installations. Maya's dormitory room had functioned as an advanced intelligence operations center while maintaining perfect camouflage as unremarkable student accommodation. Commander Morrison studied Maya's expression as the scope of her deception became apparent to everyone present. "The question isn't what you've accomplished," he said, his voice carrying undertones of professional admiration mixed with operational concern. "The question is why someone with your clearances and capabilities chose to maintain deep cover in an undergraduate program for 3 years. His inquiry addressed the fundamental mystery that had triggered the morning's dramatic intervention. Maya remained silent for several moments, calculating how much information she could reveal without compromising operations that extended beyond her individual situation. The room waited, dozens of highly trained professionals focused on understanding explanations that would reshape their perception of intelligence operations in academic environments. Finally, she spoke with quiet authority that commanded absolute attention. "Operation Silent Scholar," she said, using terminology that caused immediate reactions among the intelligence professionals surrounding her. Deep Placement Asset Development Program, designed to identify and cultivate capabilities in environments providing maximum operational security through complete social invisibility. Her explanation revealed the existence of programs that pushed the boundaries of intelligence tradecraft into territories most agents never considered. The NSA representatives exchanged glances that confirmed their familiarity with references Maya had just made, though their expressions suggested surprise at encountering an operational asset of this significance in an academic setting. CIA personnel began reviewing files with renewed intensity, correlating Maya's activities with global intelligence requirements that extended far beyond university campuses. Defense Department officials activated communication protocols that would alert senior leadership about developments requiring immediate high-level assessment. Dr. Harrison approached Maya's computer setup, his DARPA background providing context for understanding technology that exceeded anything available through conventional academic channels. "The innovations you've developed, the systems you've penetrated, the intelligence you've gathered," he said, his voice mixing admiration with growing comprehension of Maya's authentic capabilities. "This wasn't just maintaining cover while attending university, this was advancing national security objectives through academic infiltration." Maya confirmed his assessment with a slight nod, understanding that her operational security had been compromised beyond recovery but recognizing opportunities to transition from covert asset to acknowledged resource. The quiet student persona provided perfect camouflage for activities that required sustained presence in environments with constant observation but minimal suspicion, she explained, her tone carrying technical precision that revealed years of operational planning and implementation. Commander Morrison stepped closer, his expression shifting from tactical assessment to strategic consideration. "The capabilities you've demonstrated, the intelligence you've developed, the systems you've compromised," he said, consulting briefing materials that documented Maya's activities across multiple domains. "This represents operational success at levels requiring immediate integration with current threat assessment protocols." His words indicated that Maya's exposure had created opportunities as well as complications for ongoing national security operations. From the hallway, Maya could hear her dormmates being questioned by federal agents seeking to understand how they'd lived alongside someone whose true identity contradicted everything they thought they knew about their quiet, unremarkable neighbor. Their confusion and shock were audible through the cinderblock walls, voices expressing disbelief that the invisible student who'd shared their living space for 3 years possessed capabilities that warranted military intervention. Jessica's voice carried particular bewilderment as she answered questions about her roommate's habits, social connections, and daily routines. She never talked about anything important, Jessica insisted to her interrogators, her tone mixing confusion with defensive justification. She just studied all the time and kept to herself. I never saw her do anything that seemed unusual or suspicious. Her responses revealed how completely Maya's operational security had succeeded in creating perception of absolute ordinariness. The dormitory floor buzzed with activity as additional personnel arrived to process the scene, their expertise covering technical analysis, intelligence assessment, and operational planning for managing Maya's transition from deep cover to acknowledged asset. The quiet residence hall that had provided Maya's camouflage for 3 years now resembled a military command center, with communication equipment, analysis stations, and briefing areas established in spaces that had recently housed sleeping college students. Maya observed the transformation with professional interest, understanding that her careful construction of academic anonymity was being systematically dismantled by professionals whose expertise exceeded her own operational security measures. The identity she'd maintained through 3 years of social isolation and academic camouflage was dissolving under scrutiny that revealed every deception, every carefully constructed detail that had allowed her to function undetected in plain sight. Professor Williams arrived under escort, his confusion evident as he struggled to reconcile the quiet student who'd rarely participated in classroom discussions with intelligence assessments that painted an entirely different picture of her capabilities and significance. Her test scores were perfect, but she never demonstrated the kind of advanced understanding that would suggest this level of sophistication, he said to the federal agents reviewing Maya's academic performance records. Dr. Martinez followed, carrying files that documented Maya's group project contributions with new understanding of why her suggestions had exceeded the capabilities of her teammates. The security vulnerabilities she identified, the solutions she proposed, the analysis she provided, he said, his voice mixing professional admiration with bewilderment at the deception she'd maintained. Everything was far beyond undergraduate level, but we attributed it to exceptional preparation rather than operational experience. Maya watched her professors grapple with revelations that challenged their fundamental assumptions about student assessment and academic achievement. The quiet student who'd accepted dismissal and condescension had possessed expertise that exceeded their own, but she'd maintained perfect camouflage through strategic underperformance and social invisibility. Her academic career had been an elaborate intelligence operation disguised as unremarkable educational pursuit. Commander Morrison activated communication protocols that connected Maya's dormitory room to national security decision-makers, requiring immediate briefing on operational developments. The secure channels buzzed with encrypted traffic as senior officials reviewed intelligence assessments and operational recommendations generated by Maya's exposure and subsequent debriefing. The quiet student had become a national security asset requiring high-level management and strategic integration. The transition protocols are being activated, Morrison informed Maya, his voice carrying authority that indicated decisions were being made at levels requiring immediate implementation. Your academic cover is officially terminated, and integration procedures will commence immediately. His announcement confirmed that Maya's time at Westfield University had ended, replaced by obligations and opportunities that reflected her authentic capabilities and operational significance. Maya accepted the news with equanimity that reflected years of preparation for eventual exposure. She'd understood from the beginning that her academic camouflage was temporary, designed to provide operational security while developing capabilities that would eventually require acknowledgement and integration with broader national security objectives. The quiet student persona had served its purpose, but circumstances now demanded transition to more direct operational roles. The technical teams completed their documentation of Maya's equipment and systems, their analysis revealing the extent to which her dormitory room had functioned as an advanced intelligence operations center while maintaining perfect camouflage as typical student accommodation. Quantum processors, satellite communication arrays, and encryption devices had operated continuously beneath the notice of dormmates who'd shared living space without recognizing the sophisticated technology surrounding them daily. Federal agents concluded their interviews with Maya's former classmates and dorm mates, their questioning having revealed the extent to which social invisibility had provided operational security that exceeded conventional cover identities. The students who dismissed Maya as quiet and unremarkable had lived alongside someone whose capabilities warranted military intervention, their assumptions and prejudices having contributed to camouflage that protected classified operations for 3 years. As morning sunlight filled the demolished dormitory room, Maya prepared for extraction from the university environment that had provided operational cover while she developed capabilities now requiring integration with national security priorities. The quiet student who'd been ignored and underestimated was transitioning to acknowledged roles that reflected her authentic significance in ways that would challenge everyone's understanding of judgment, assumption, and the dangerous consequences of dismissing those who choose concealment over recognition. Commander Morrison prepared final coordination protocols as extraction teams established secure transportation for Maya's transition from academic environment to operational facilities appropriate for her capabilities and security requirements. The university campus that had unknowingly hosted one of America's most sophisticated intelligence assets was being secured and debriefed, with protocols ensuring that operational exposure wouldn't compromise other classified programs or personnel. Maya took one final look around the dormitory room that had served as her operational base for 3 years, understanding that her carefully constructed identity as an unremarkable undergraduate was ending permanently. The social isolation, academic camouflage, and strategic invisibility that had protected her mission were no longer necessary, replaced by recognition and integration that reflected her authentic capabilities and operational significance. The transformation was complete. The quiet student who'd been mocked for her social awkwardness and dismissed for her apparent ordinariness had revealed herself as one of America's most valuable intelligence assets, her capabilities warranting intervention by the nation's most elite military forces. The assumptions and prejudices that had provided her operational security were now exposed as fundamental misunderstandings that had protected classified operations through the simple expedient of social invisibility. Maya walked toward the doorway flanked by Navy SEALs, her transition from academic anonymity to operational acknowledgement requiring escort appropriate for someone whose true significance had remained hidden beneath layers of carefully constructed normalcy. The university community would struggle to understand how they'd lived alongside someone whose capabilities exceeded their recognition, their dismissive attitudes having contributed to operational security that protected national interests while she pursued objectives far beyond academic achievement. As extraction teams prepared for Maya's departure from Westfield University, the broader implications of her exposure began generating assessment protocols that would reshape understanding of intelligence operations in academic environments. The quiet student had demonstrated that the most sophisticated assets could maintain perfect camouflage through strategic cultivation of social irrelevance, their operational security protected by assumptions and prejudices that prevented recognition of capabilities hidden in plain sight. The story of Maya Chen would become legend within intelligence communities, but the public would never learn the complete truth about the quiet undergraduate who'd lived among them while pursuing objectives that exceeded conventional understanding. Her legacy would remain classified, protected by the same operational security principles that had allowed her to function undetected, until circumstances required dramatic revelation of capabilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about judgment, recognition, and the dangerous consequences of underestimating those who choose invisibility over acknowledgement. The weeks following Maya's extraction from Westfield University brought profound changes that rippled through every level of the academic community. Students who had shared classes with her for 3 years found themselves questioned by federal investigators, seeking to understand how someone of her operational significance had maintained such perfect camouflage among them. Their responses revealed the extent to which assumptions about social hierarchies and academic performance had created blind spots that protected classified operations through simple invisibility. Professor Williams spent hours reviewing every interaction he'd had with Maya, searching for signs he should have recognized, but had dismissed due to preconceptions about quiet students and classroom participation. His colleagues in the computer science department underwent similar self-examination, their academic confidence shaken by the realization that they'd consistently underestimated someone whose expertise exceeded their own. The quiet student who'd sat in back corners had possessed knowledge that could have advanced their research by decades, but their assumptions about engagement and capability had prevented recognition of her authentic contributions. Jessica struggled most with the revelations about her former roommate, spending sleepless nights trying to reconcile the invisible girl who'd shared her living space with intelligence assessments that painted Maya as one of America's most valuable assets. The federal agents who'd interviewed her had been patient but persistent, seeking every detail about Maya's habits, visitors, and activities that might provide insight into operational methods that had succeeded so completely. Jessica's responses had revealed how thoroughly Maya's social camouflage had functioned, creating perception of absolute ordinariness that protected extraordinary capabilities. The university administration implemented new protocols for student background verification, though they understood that conventional screening methods would never detect assets operating at Maya's sophisticated level. President Davidson met with federal officials who explained the delicate balance between academic freedom and national security requirements, discussions that resulted in policies acknowledging that some students might possess capabilities and obligations extending beyond traditional educational frameworks. The quiet campus that had unknowingly hosted classified operations for 3 years adapted to recognition that academic environments could serve purposes invisible to conventional oversight. Dr. Harrison's role as DARPA liaison became officially acknowledged, his position expanded to include broader assessment of technological innovations emerging from academic research programs. His identification of Maya's capabilities through classroom observation had demonstrated the value of embedding intelligence professionals within university faculties, leading to increased coordination between educational institutions and agencies responsible for identifying exceptional talent. The cybersecurity seminars that had provided Maya's initial exposure became templates for similar programs designed to evaluate student capabilities while maintaining operational security. In classified briefing rooms hundreds of miles from Westfield University, Maya's integration into acknowledged intelligence roles proceeded with careful attention to maximizing her operational value while protecting programs that remained covert. Her debriefings revealed the extent to which academic environments could support sophisticated intelligence activities, providing lessons that would reshape asset development and deployment strategies for generations. The quiet student had demonstrated that perfect camouflage could be achieved through strategic cultivation of social irrelevance, her success inspiring new approaches to operational security in environments requiring sustained presence and minimal suspicion. Commander Morrison filed reports that became required reading for special operations personnel responsible for identifying and extracting high-value assets from civilian environments. Maya's case study demonstrated the challenges of recognizing sophisticated operators who maintain deep cover through social invisibility, emphasizing the importance of looking beyond conventional indicators when assessing potential threats or valuable resources. His tactical teams had executed perfect operational security during Maya's extraction, but the real lesson involved understanding how assumptions and prejudices could protect classified activities through simple dismissal of those who appeared unremarkable. The dormitory building where Maya had lived was quietly renovated, with technical modifications that would detect future attempts to establish similar operational capabilities within student housing. The changes were subtle, designed to maintain normal residential atmosphere while providing security monitoring appropriate for environments that might unknowingly host classified activities. Her former room became unofficially known among residence hall staff as evidence that extraordinary capabilities could remain hidden beneath layers of apparent ordinariness, though the complete truth about Maya's identity remained classified at levels requiring specific authorization to access. Maya's former classmates returned to their studies with altered perspectives on judgment and assumption, though they received no official explanation for the dramatic events that had transformed their quiet dormmate into the center of military intervention. Some developed increased respect for students who chose silence over participation, understanding that classroom engagement might not accurately reflect authentic capabilities or significance. Others became more observant of social dynamics and academic performance patterns, seeking to avoid the blindness that had prevented recognition of someone whose expertise had exceeded their collective understanding. The computer science department established new research opportunities designed to identify exceptional talent while providing appropriate oversight for students whose capabilities might extend beyond conventional academic frameworks. Maya's perfect academic performance combined with her social invisibility had created assessment challenges that required more sophisticated evaluation methods. Her professors implemented protocols for recognizing advanced understanding that might be deliberately concealed, ensuring that future students with similar capabilities would receive appropriate guidance and support rather than dismissive treatment. Federal agencies incorporated lessons learned from Maya's case into training programs for operatives responsible for maintaining cover identities in academic environments. Her success demonstrated that social camouflage could be more effective than elaborate false backgrounds, providing operational security through strategic cultivation of dismissive attitudes among those positioned to observe daily activities. The quiet student had proven that visibility and recognition were often counterproductive for intelligence operations requiring sustained presence in environments with constant observation but minimal suspicion. Years later, Westfield University's reputation for academic excellence became quietly enhanced by recognition within intelligence communities that the institution had unknowingly supported some of America's most sophisticated operations. Recruitment representatives from various agencies began visiting campus regularly, though their presence was discreet and their criteria for identifying exceptional students remained classified. The university that had dismissed Maya's capabilities became a preferred environment for asset development, her legacy contributing to programs that would protect national security through academic integration. Maya's story circulated within classified channels as demonstration that operational success often required abandoning conventional approaches to recognition and achievement. Her willingness to accept dismissal and condescension in service of broader objectives inspired new operational philosophies that emphasized mission accomplishment over personal recognition. The quiet student had proven that true professionalism sometimes required accepting underestimation while pursuing excellence that would ultimately serve purposes beyond individual satisfaction. The tactical teams that had participated in Maya's extraction incorporated her case into training scenarios designed to prepare personnel for encounters with assets whose capabilities exceeded initial assessment. Her calm response to military intervention, combined with her seamless transition from academic cover to operational acknowledgement, demonstrated the sophistication possible when intelligence operations achieve perfect integration with civilian environments. The dormitory room that had concealed advanced technology while maintaining perfect camouflage became a study in operational security that exceeded conventional understanding. Intelligence analysts spent months reviewing Maya's academic activities, correlating her performance with global security requirements that extended far beyond university campuses. Her research contributions, vulnerability assessments and technical innovations had advanced national security objectives while maintaining complete invisibility to academic oversight. The quiet student had demonstrated that some of America's most valuable assets operated in plain sight, their capabilities protected by assumptions and prejudices that prevented recognition of extraordinary potential hidden beneath ordinary appearances. Maya's transition from university environment to operational facilities appropriate for her capabilities proceeded with protocols ensuring that her exceptional talents would receive proper development and application. The academic camouflage that had protected her mission for 3 years was replaced by recognition and resources that reflected her authentic significance in national security operations. Her story became legend within intelligence communities, though the public would never learn complete details about the quiet undergraduate who'd lived among them while pursuing objectives that exceeded conventional understanding. The legacy of Operation Silent Scholar extended beyond Maya's individual success to reshape understanding of intelligence operations in academic environments. Universities across the country implemented discrete protocols for recognizing students whose capabilities might extend beyond traditional educational frameworks, while agencies responsible for national security developed new methods for identifying and cultivating exceptional talent within civilian populations. The quiet student had proven that perfect camouflage could be achieved through strategic invisibility, her operational success inspiring approaches to asset development that would protect American interests for generations to come. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up, just click and check them out.